Welcome to the Dean's Roundtable podcast series with Bridget Johnson. Each month, we bring you game-changing conversations about K-12 education and leadership. Join us as top educators, field experts, and administrators share actionable strategies to transform your school community. Let's dive in.
Welcome back to the Dean's Roundtable podcast. I'm Bridget Johnson, the founder of the Dean's Roundtable, a space created for student life professionals to connect, learn, share, and grow together. I am so excited for today's conversation with my friend and incredible educator, Dr. Liza Tallison. I met Liza back when she came to do some really powerful in-service work at Concord Academy while I was on the board, and I've been in awe of her impact ever since. With over 25 years of experience in pre-K to 20 education and having worked with over 375 schools, Liza has this amazing way of helping people have those tough but necessary conversations about diversity, inclusion, and creating real change that sticks. Today, we're discussing something super relevant: how educators can navigate the post-election landscape. Honestly, I can't think of anyone better to guide us through this than Liza. Welcome to the show, Liza.
Hello, Bridget. Hello, Dean's Roundtable. Hi, everybody who is just trying to make it in the world.
There we go, because that's where we are right now, just trying to make it in the world. So, Liza, tell us about your journey and how this work became your passion.
Yeah, so I think the thing about being in the field for over 25 years means it's been a long journey. So I will give you the highlight reel.
Give me the highlight reel.
So deeply, when I think about the work that you're doing here, Bridget, with the Dean's Roundtable, so I served as a dean in a number of different ways: student life, residence life. That's been my entire training. Teaching's actually been a very small part of that, but so much of what I have done has been a head advisor, a residence director, a graduate assistant in student activities, career development, like pretty much
all the things.
When I was I'm like the really stereotypical was a leader in high school, and then basically went to college to do clubs. So I was like your quintessential wanting to be involved in student life and student activities and student leadership. I went right from undergrad to my master's to get my master's in student affairs. And from there have been working in the field, and then went and got my doctorate a few years ago on higher education. But in terms of working around identity, I mean, that's been my entire life. The language has changed, the terminology has changed, but the values, the things that we work towards have not changed. We are always looking to seek for the best of humanity in people. I will say my identity as someone who grew up in the church is someone who believes that of God lives within each of us, even though if you don't believe in God, like that is my approach, my value system. And so for me, identity has always been something that has shaped my world and my work. It's only really been in the past maybe 8 to 10 years that I've started to really codify that in writing and text and workshops. But I would say my journey is ongoing. I don't even know what the start point was, Bridget, because identity work, diversity work, values-driven work has been with me this entire time. And it's what continues to guide me even when, we were like half joking, even when it feels like the world is melting. My values are the thing that guide me. So my journey, honestly, Bridget, has been about discovering how I can best live my values day in and day out. Yeah, I would say that's the journey.
I love that. And so you've written 2 books, and they're both around identity conscious. What is an identity conscious practice?
It's so funny because, again, it's about terminology.
Yep.
And so for me, identity can mean lots of different things, but I'll take the most broad approach. To me, an identity conscious practice is just this process of realizing that who we are, and I'll go broad, that could be race, class, gender. It could be body size, immigration. It could be things like experiences with addiction and health experiences. Like all of these different influencers, right, can inform and impact how we act or how we behave, how we interact, the kinds of relationships that we build with people, and then how we see the world around us, the sense that we make of the world, the context that we make of the world. So for me, the identity conscious practice is being aware of how identity shapes our world and our world view. And that is a little bit different from DEI. Sometimes I hear folks like use it interchangeably. And honestly, Bridget, it's not interchangeable for me.
Okay.
As someone who's been a director of DEI and done this work.
Sure.
DEI is actually three different words. It's diversity, right? Meaning lots of differences. It's equity, looking at policies and practices, and it's inclusion, creating the sense of belonging. So to me, DEI work is action work. To me, identity conscious work is actually inward work. It's slowing down, it's process, it's understanding how you impact the world around you. So I would say they're under the same kind of umbrella, but they are different. An identity conscious practice means I understand that identity shapes everything.
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 I love that, and I appreciate you making that distinction. So, in both your books, but especially your latest one, The Identity Conscious Practice in Action, you dive deep into intentional practice and the importance of identity work. In this climate where there's such pushback against these conversations, how can educators both protect these vital spaces for dialogue while also taking care of themselves and supporting students who might be experiencing anxiety or feelings of erasure?
Oh my gosh.
I know.
Right? I mean, all the things. Like, how do we do all those things? So I really pull from my practice as a martial artist and as a runner, which seems so weird. People are like, I thought you were going to say you pulled from your doctoral work or your research. No, I pull from karate and business running. And the reason
I
why I
love
say
it.
that, I know, right? It's like, so it sounds so strange, but it will make sense in just a moment. So in karate, right, I get geared up, I warm up, I do these things, I go to class 3 times a week and I'm on the mat. And we do a considerable amount of sparring or fighting
Yep.
and a considerable amount of self-defense.
Yes.
Okay. So the instructor doesn't go, all right, everybody, now choke them out. That would be awful. Right? He's
Maybe.
like, here's how you I know it sounds so extreme, but he's like, here's how you properly choke someone.
Right.
Here's how you slowly let's practice it in the air.
Right.
Let's do this move. And once we've done that for like a week, practicing in the air, then we are allowed to work with partners.
Right.
And the partner goes, I'm about to grab you. Like, it is absurd, right? And then when we test, right, we test every 4 weeks. Somebody is no longer is going, I'm about to grab you. They just grab you.
Right.
But it's after we've been practicing for 4 weeks.
Right.
Okay. And even then, what I'm practicing for is real life. So I hope to goodness, and I'm going to say this way, that nobody tries to choke me. I will.
I hope they don't either. And I'm going to call them if they choke me. I'm like, call Liza.
I'm like, don't even try to come for me. I will hurt you. Why? Because I'm well practiced. I'm
Right.
training for a thing that might never happen,
Right.
but I'm doing it intentionally. Okay, Liza, what does this have to do with a book? Because in the book, what I'm saying is slow down. Notice your moves. Think through all of the possibilities so that when the time comes, because it's going to happen, you are prepared, you are calm, your nervous system, your adrenaline has done this before, granted in a stimulated fashion.
Right.
You know this, all right? And so what the book is about with our deans, with our school leaders, is to say you have to create time to slow this down. And we do this, Bridget, so many other ways in schools. Like, I hate to say this, but how many times have you and I done active shooter drills? Like,
Yeah.
so many. I've only been in one in my 25 years of teaching, been in one situation where there was like possibility something was happening and it turned out
Right.
not. But guess what? When it was going on, when the alarms happened, I didn't panic.
Right.
Grabbed the students, I closed the door, I pulled down the shade because I was well practiced.
Right. You did the thing.
I did the thing. And then afterward, I cried, right? And I was like, I can't even believe I hate these. Why do we have to do them? So all that to say, with identity conscious work, with DEI work, with post-election work, with whatever's happening, we have to practice. We have to practice. We have to slow it down. So these books are designed to say, slow down, everyone. Like, have a conversation about what we think would happen, what we think we should do. So I think it's something we do. You know, you and I have done things like orientation.
Right.
We do these like in August, and then we never revisit it ever again. And I just think if we approach this work as part of our development, part of our responsibility to practice these identity conscious scenarios, really tough decisions, we can just be much more more thoughtful, we can be safer about it, and we can feel more confident and calm in the work that we're doing. And you and I have worked in student affairs there, and
Yep.
nothing about confidence and calm
I kn-
that defines that field. So
exactly.
we
And
got
so
to create it.
absolutely. And there are two things that you said that I want to highlight in particular. We do not slow down enough.
We don't.
We don't. We feel like we've got to rush to the next thing. We're in a microwave society and what everyone expects
Yeah.
answers immediately. I cannot stress that enough. Slowing down and
Slow it
how
down.
important that is. And then practice. Like,
Mhm.
as a former runner myself, practice is
Yeah.
important. You can't run fast if you only go out there once a week and do
Correct.
something. You got to practice every day, right? I love that you said those two things. That they so resonate with me. So I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So, how can deans balance being responsive to student needs while also protecting their teams from burnout? What does good leadership look like in this moment?
Yeah. So I will say I'm like almost 50-ish. I was raised in the field when, and again, if you're kind of my age, I think we've been doing it a little bit differently in student affairs and student life. But when
Sure.
I was coming up,
Yep.
being sleepless was a badge of honor. If someone
Yep.
was like, "How much did you sleep last night?" I'm like, "Oh, I haven't slept since Tuesday." Right? Like that was
Yes.
it was a bragging right, right? In the way that like I'm so busy as a bragging right.
Exactly.
And so I was raised at a time when there was no such thing as burnout. It was just you did the work, and if you collapsed, you collapsed. It was part of what we did. Thankfully, I think the field has changed
Yes.
because it's just it's not healthy. We lost a lot of people from student life fields, and it's not good for our
It's
mental health or
it's
our
no
physical
longer a
health.
sustainable model, right?
Not sustainable, right?
Right.
So, one, I think we have to remember that there is a generational divide in terms of how some of us were socialized and came up in the field versus what young people are expecting now. And I say that because sometimes I'm talking to people my age and they're like, "Oh, Liza, these new professionals don't want to work as hard as we did." And I was like, "No, no, what we did was super messed up." Like, I actually think this balance is really healthy that they have. So, one, I would say as supervisors, we do have to reframe how we were socialized and what we learned versus what is actually good research and practice right now is kind of number one.
Right.
But number two, I would say it's always been frustrating when I worked with supervisors who would say things like family first, take care of yourself, and then would penalize me if I put my family first or I tried to take care of myself. So I think as a leader, this is to me where identity consciousness comes in. We do have to be aware of how we perpetuate particularly oppressive scenarios,
Mm,
and that can be coming from us, right?
yeah.
I will say that unfortunately, some of the people who have done that to me the most have been women, and separately have also been people of color. Where I understanding that for some people, the identity of being a woman or a person of color in leadership meant they believed there was only room for one of them, or there was, they didn't want to compete with other people. And so they tried, right, to kind of like cull the ranks a little bit.
Hmm.
So I think one, we have to be aware as supervisors of what we are doing to kind of a younger generation to avoid burnout. But two, we do have to understand that this work is deeply personal. Like
Right.
it's also not really possible to say, leave your work at work and go home. For some of us, the walk home is dangerous, right? For some of us, going back to homes is particularly dangerous. And so I think as student affairs folks, as people who are supervisors, really understanding the complexity of identity in people's lives and how that plays out differently is incredibly important. And to me, that's all identity conscious leadership,
Hmm.
right? Do I understand how identity impacts my staff, what they do, what they experience, and realizing that it could be different for different staff members. So the plan with identity conscious leadership is making sure you spend the time to understand how your identity is informing and impacting supervision and how their identities might be informing and impacting the relationship. I think that is like, honestly, it sounds like such a broad generic answer, but it really is the
No.
key for me. Yeah.
No, and I appreciate that. So, among many, one of the issues that deans and school leaders are struggling with is to how to navigate the impact of the current political climate.
Mm.
What are you noticing are some big issues related to this?
Yeah, I'm like deep cleansing breath. Right.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, one, I say this hesitantly, one is uncertainty,
Hmm.
right? And then at the same time, I go, oh, there's so much certainty, right? And I'll start with the certainty. One, the incoming administration has put out a document, a 900-page document called Project 2025, right? And so it is certain that that is their leadership agenda, right? That is
Yep.
certainty.
Yep.
Uncertainty is, to what extent is it actually possible? To what extent are they actually going to implement that? Like
Right.
4 years, some of the things the incoming president can just do, and
Yep.
some of the things they need, like Congress, I don't know, checks and balances. So I think part of the anxiety is like this certain uncertainty that is kind of happening in there. So I'm seeing that quite a bit. I'm seeing people just feel like really unstable, right? And not knowing what this is going to mean. I work with about 350 schools all across the world,
Uh-huh.
and every single school is reacting differently. So I had one school that I was chatting with this morning, and I was like, "How are you feeling? Or what are you worried about?" And they're like, "Nothing. We got this. Our people are our people. Our
Hmm.
mission is our mission. Like, we know
Okay.
who we are. We're not changing what we've been doing for 100 years. Go you!" Right?
Exactly.
Thank you. And then I had another school who said, "We have some of the incoming administration's kids at the school."
Hmm.
That is a really different conversation,
Very
right?
different.
Because
Very
now you're
different.
dealing with power, now you're dealing with influence, even when you have a school filled with people who believe in mission and identity and goodness, like that is a really powerful external force. So I'm seeing a lot of deans and school leaders trying to figure out how to manage their internal values and what they know the school values with, let's be real, this very external power and pressure that's happening that they can't control.
Hmm.
We also have deans and school leaders who, just like this country, have schools that are 50-50, right? That 50% were disappointed in the election, 50% were very excited. And
Yeah.
I think the responsibility of student life and deans and school leaders is like, how do we hold that? And again, it's like certain uncertainty. They're trying to figure out what that means. I'll tell you the last really, really relevant one. I was talking to a dean this morning,
Uh-huh.
and she was asking me about, "Hey, Liza, have you been hearing anything about dress codes and what's
Hmm.
been going on?" And I'm like, "Okay, well, I always hear about dress codes.
Right.
What do you mean?" And she was like, "Well, last week we had a bunch of students come in with red MAGA hats." And I was like, "You
Mm.
know what? Here, this is what's interesting is I think 4 years ago, I would have said, consult your handbook. That's disruptive clothing that falls under this guidance.
Right.
But what do you do when that person is going to be the leader of the free world?"
Exactly.
I was like, I can appreciate how challenging that is. So my advice today is actually not the same advice as 2020. Like I think you have to talk to your board and you've got to talk through your leadership team. There's not one way to answer this question. And I
Absolutely.
think
And
that's what's so frustrating, right? From deans and school leaders. Are you here? I mean, you're obviously so very connected to that community. What are you hearing, Bridget?
yeah, it's a little bit of the same thing. And one of the things that I really want to talk to you about today is about the balance.
Yeah.
Because how can educators create brave spaces for dialogue? Because educational spaces are supposed to be places for dialogue, respectful dialogue, and that dialogue supports students who might be feeling isolated in their views one way or the other. And so whether you're in the minority or the majority on an issue, we can't make assumptions. And so how do we kind of find that balance for those folks who are in schools where, well, in schools in general, because you have to make sure that you are giving everyone a voice as long
Mhm.
as they're doing it respectfully. So, what's your take on that?
Oh, hot takes, hot takes. It's again, my answer is so different now than it was in October. Like,
Mm,
that is the reality of the election, isn't it?
yeah.
So let me give you this example. So I was listening to a local town committee meeting because that's what I do for fun on the weekdays. What is going on? Who have I become? And I've been actually really interested in local government because of like just everything that's happening.
Sure.
And someone was talking about pushing back on Corey checks, that
Mm,
elected officials shouldn't be Corey checked.
hmm.
And yeah, I know. And so I've been Corey checked my whole life. And so
Well,
I'm
right.
like, whatever. It's like washing my hands. It's the same thing every day. And so there was a lot of pushback. And a person had said, well, I'm an elected official. I shouldn't have to have a Corey check. And you know what? In October, I would have agreed. I would have said, like, no, you must. And now we elected a felon into our highest office who would not pass a Corey check. So
That is
my
correct.
answer on February, November 2024, Bridget, it's a different answer than I would have given in October. And so I think that's one of the challenges is I think the playbook that we had as deans, as student life folks, as leaders will remain largely the same, right? We still believe in identity development and growth mindset, like all these really important concepts, but the landscape that we're having this conversation has changed,
So different.
right? And so even just those two examples I gave were like about discipline, loosely related. And even today, I'm kind of like, I don't know, dude. Like, how do you tell people now you need a background check when we elected a criminal into office? I do have people in my life who are formerly incarcerated, who are
Mhm.
wonderful, incredible people, did their time trying to get a job and can't.
Right.
And so there's a part of me, right, that's like, oh, hey, you better get a job because it looks like we're giving jobs to people with criminal records. So there's a part of me that is really conflicted right now, Bridget. Again, my
Mhm.
values are the same, my mission's the same, my philosophy is the same, but the landscape has changed around this. And so when I think about the roles of deans and school leaders, we have to consider the changing landscape. It doesn't mean that we have to give into it, right? I'm
Right.
not standing here in front of you being like, hands up, I give in, like let's roll with the new punches. I'm
Yeah.
not doing that. And also, I would be ridiculous not to see that we have to operate in a new landscape right now. But I do worry about things like advisories, right? Advisories that deans or student life people tend to run, where that was a place when I was a head advisor. That's where we talked about identity. It's where we talked about relationships. It's where
Right.
we talked about discourse. It's where we had respectful disagreements. And
Yep.
I'm curious, right? Are there going to be changes in how we do advisory, or will there be parent groups that are pushing back on what we teach in advisory? It's hard for me to say I believe in balance because I am a very opinionated, I'm driven by my morals and values, and those I don't really compromise on.
Mhm.
And at the same time, identity conscious means that I have to consider your identity, even if
Right.
I disagree with you,
Right.
which is again why I don't call it DEI work. Like
Mhm.
your identity or someone's identity is a conservative, orthodox, fill in the blank, whatever, right?
Yep.
I have to consider those in my dialogue and discussion. So my values, my approach has not changed, but the landscape around dialogue, discussion, discourse has definitely and is changing rapidly.
And I appreciate you said that out loud
Yeah.
because I don't think people feel like they can do that or feel like they want to do that
Mhm.
based on kind of what their beliefs and values are and how they bring their whole selves to their job every day. And
Yeah.
so, how do you help people reconcile that? Because that's really hard.
Yeah. I mean, so I do what I would call one-sided work, right? I'm anti-racist. Like that means something very particular,
Right.
right? I am pro-trans, pro-LGBT. That means something very particular, right? I
Right.
am pro-undocumented people. I came from undocumented people. Like
Uh-huh.
that means something like so I'm not going to argue my parents' humanity. I'm not going to argue my loved one's humanity as being trans. I'm not going to argue those things. I tend to approach this work when I'm feeling kind with compassion, right? Compassion is one of like the five principles that I hold. I hold curiosity, collaboration, critical thinking, compassion, and community. Like those are five values that I live by. And so I can be compassionate, right? I can understand, like, let's take a very difficult topic around what's happening in Gaza, Palestine, Israel, Lebanon. Like, I can be very compassionate. I have a clear opinion, right? I have a clear understanding of what's happening and where I fall in there. And I can also hold compassion for multiple communities. That can be true. And so I think part of how I stay balanced, how I stay in it, how I stay not a like crumbling to the ground, right? Is I lean into my value of compassion. And I do think on both sides, whether you want to call it both sides or not, we
Uh-huh.
have lost that practice of being
Absolutely
compassionate.
have.
Yeah.
Absolutely have. You are
Yeah.
1000% correct. People aren't kind anymore and they don't feel like they
Right.
have to be. And that is tough for me personally. I just don't get it. I don't understand like why is it so hard to be kind
I
or
know.
not be kind? Maybe just not be don't say anything.
Right.
We've
Right.
just the pendulum has swung so far to the other side. I'm like, how did we get here?
Right.
It's really been difficult. And so, deans often have to bridge the gap between students, faculty, parents, and administration. They are the bridge. And they are the bridge literally. And so, how can student life folks navigate these different constituencies when there's tension around identity work, and especially when parents or board members push back?
Yeah, first of all, shout out to deans, man, because the fact that you
Shout
just
out to
named
deans.
every constituency on a campus that nobody else, and I mean the head of school sort of, right? But like
Ish.
they have a thing. Yeah. You talked about being a bridge, like a connector. Like if someone's having beef with this group, like you're
Yep.
the one getting called. And like across this way, you're the one getting called. So shout out to all the deans who, I don't know, I was a middle child, so I feel like I was raised for this.
Same here.
Okay. We have to, yep. Right. Natural mediators,
Exactly.
negotiators. And so I just want to lean into your metaphor of being a bridge. Like, I really do think it's bridge work that we're doing. How do I connect? I want you to think about those times when people are afraid, and I mean literally, physically, afraid to cross bridges because they're afraid of heights.
Right. Uh-huh.
Like, what do? You don't push them across the bridge.
Right.
You counsel them, you help them, you say, I'll walk next to you. And I just think we've lost that skill in
Mm.
conversations with each other. But I also want to say this, Bridget, it's not that deans are exclusively minoritized people, women of color, women, LGBT folks, but I do think it's a field that we are drawn to. So
Yep.
when I think about all of my friends in student life, like many of them do come from minoritized backgrounds.
Hmm.
And I want to say here, what we have to be careful of, and I'm using the we because I know our identities together.
Absolutely.
What we have to be careful of is oftentimes the job compromises your health
Yes.
or physical health. Like you and I have been in the field long enough. We have had people who've passed away, Bridget,
We
right?
have.
Rest in peace, who didn't have health problems before they did student life or DEI work, for whom the emotional toll of the work, and I mean very physically, took their heart,
Absolutely. Yes.
right? And I think about other things like high blood pressure, diabetes, autoimmune diseases. And I hope your people who are listening, I'm not being hyperbolic in any way. This is factual.
No, this is
For
real.
our friends,
Yep.
right? And so I also just want to remind people that yes, this is our passion. This is our purpose. And you work in a job, right?
A
It's
job.
a job. It's a job. And it's one part of my job. Like and when I'm home, I'm working another job as a socially just mother, as a identity conscious partner. Like there's other things I'm doing in my community.
Right.
But I just want to say this because we, in the past week, we heard about the loss of a good friend of ours who had worked for 26 years in a private school in a student life position.
Hmm.
And I just think about all what we put into our work, and especially as women, as people of color, as minoritized folks, we don't always put it back into us.
Right.
So I'm holding her and her family in my heart from this past week and remembering that if we were to leave our job, there would be a job posting in a week.
Replacement for your job.
Correct. So I just want people, I mean, there's strategies, of course, go to therapy, like seek support, but I just want to remind people it is a job. Yes, it's a passion and a calling and my morals and my values. And in the end, like that is a job that I do. And I need you, right? I need you to take care of
Yes.
your health,
Yes.
your mental, physical, emotional wellness, because, and I'll just name it. I mean, white supremacy is meant to destroy you.
Hmm.
And I refuse to let it. So it's why I go running. It's why I do martial arts. It's why I write. It's why I take a break, right? Because I need to be strong enough to continue the work. And I say that with love to all my deans and student life people. We need you in the work. And the only way to do that is to be able to rest and recover.
Well, to take care of yourself, I say this on my podcast all the time. Put the oxygen mask on yourself first.
Yes.
Before you help someone else. If
Yeah.
you don't take care of yourself, if you're not in good health, you're no good for anyone
No
else.
good.
And
Right.
by the time sometimes we realize that, it's almost too late. And I
Yeah.
don't want it to be too late for people. So I really appreciate you saying that, directly and out loud. And you've talked
Mhm.
about the practical stuff in your self-care toolkit. Is there anything else that you would add to that? I love it.
I mean, like, yes, I'll say this other part, right? Like, I think some people are surprised that I really like doing anti-racist work. Like, I I find it joyous. It's hard and it's brutal and it's awful, right? Like it is. Like, but I also I'm able to survive in it because I find joy in it, right? I
Mm,
find joyous moments in it. And so that is what helps me. But I also really do, Bridget, like I put boundaries around things. Like
mm.
there are times where I will read a beachy trash novel and not read, which I did read the Ta-Nehisi book, but I like I need to take a break from things. And I
Right.
think as a woman of color, as a child of immigrants, I often thought that I had to grind all the
All
time.
the time.
And part of that was taught to me. I was socialized in that way, but it's also how I found worth in a
Mm.
white-led world.
Yep.
Liza, she works so hard. Oh yeah, she'll get the job done. Like she's our number one player. And that was really positive affirmation. And then when I realized it was at the expense of my own health, like I had to
Mm.
stop. So I'll just say, like, one of the pieces of advice is I had to start caring about me.
Right.
And it sounds very selfish for those of us who do student life and justice work. And I had to say, I believe in me. I'm worthy of rest and time.
Well, right. If you don't, who will?
Nobody.
You
They
know?
won't.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Let's take a segue a little bit, or let's just kind of switch gears because we haven't really talked a lot about residential life. And I want to make sure
Oh,
that we do that. And you mentioned all the hats that you wore in that arena. And so you've worked with boarding schools, you've worked in boarding schools. What are you telling dorm parents and advisors about creating safe spaces in student houses right now, especially when conversations don't stop at the
oh
classroom?
my gosh. Yeah. So just to be clear, I've worked, most of my residential life has been in colleges, which
Okay.
I will say is actually really similar. It's still kind of
Yeah.
old school and local parentis, right? Like they're
Yeah.
adults, like
Oh,
they don't call their parents. And
right.
so, yeah, we were the ones who were there during late nights and I'll be honest again, how I behaved in my younger years is different from how I behave now, right?
Sure.
Like in my younger years, because the socialization was you just give, 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 give.
Right.
So yeah, I would pull all nighters with students and I would say like, I'll be here for as long as you need to talk. And older Liza is like, I got boundaries. Like, what will you need to be safe tonight?
Mhm.
Right. And what do we do at 9 o'clock tomorrow after we've slept for a couple hours?
Yep.
What is the plan to get over to counseling services? What
Mhm.
kind of, right? Like creating some of these more like connective plans.
Yep.
But I do agree. I know it doesn't stop, especially if you are living in residence with your students. And so I would say the older me would have told the younger me, like, you have to have boundaries. And boundaries doesn't mean you don't care about them. Right,
Exactly.
because I would connect being always available to that's how much I care.
Right.
And I'm like, well, it's okay to have boundaries. It's also okay to teach young people about boundaries, right? We do it in so many other ways.
Yep.
So I think that's a piece. I think providing opportunities for people to express not in talking. So I know a lot of our amazing dorm parents will do like creative arts,
Mm.
will do something passive programming on the bulletin boards or in the common rooms,
Yep.
making sure that we're just checking in with young people, making sure that they have, again, I'm using the word safety plan loosely, but a place to go to or an adult support if they need it.
Mhm.
But I do appreciate that being a dorm parent, being in residence is incredibly challenging. And individuals who are in that position do have to decide what kind of boundaries they want to create during these times. And you and I know the cycle changes, right? Like it gets
Right.
really needy at certain times
Right.
and then sometimes it doesn't. So I think each individual has to figure out what that means for them. But that you can't hold all 90 students all at once
You
24/7.
cannot.
You can't.
You cannot. So, what should schools and leaders be doing to strategize in these next few months?
Mm. Well, the difference between this time around and 2016 is they gave us the playbook,
Yep.
right? They published it. It's called Project 2025. It's 900 pages. It's readily accessible. There is a section on education.
Okay.
And I've always said this, Bridget. Y'all, listen, I love me Barack Obama, but when he says like hope and change, right? I bought in, I was all in. But I also want to say, no disrespect to the former president, hope is not a strategy.
Oh,
It's great, right? It's a visionary, it's encouragement, it's looking ahead. It's amazing. It's not strategy. You
right.
can't hope as a strategy. I can't
Right.
hope that this is not going to happen.
Right.
Right. And so I need to be strategic. So I will tell you, I think every school that I'm working with right now, Bridget, I
Mhm.
have them pulling pieces from the education section in Project 2025. And there's a lot of really clear things in there. I mean, if we continue on this pathway, there's some things that aren't going to really impact, for example, private schools like Title I or getting rid of Head Start. But I would
Right.
say those programs impact the students that we receive later on. But I think more importantly, and I know that you're looking at like private and public schools, but you know, I don't love the terminology of culture wars because
Mm,
it assumes that there's some sort of battle happening. But I do know in Project 2025, it talks about reducing rights for LGBT students, reducing funding for students with disabilities, limiting how we talk about family diversity, penalizing teachers and school leaders for engaging in identity work. It gives parents and caregivers the ability to pursue legal action over curricular content. It restricts teaching of stuff that you and I talk a lot about: race, class, gender, sexual orientation. And I will say there's no way to teach American history without talking about those things.
right.
So people have gone so far as to say that Project 2025 is a white nationalist agenda.
Mm,
And I will agree with that, especially if we are removing any type of historical understanding or current day analysis of the robust diversity of the United States. So that's something that we have to be really prepared for. Again, I'm asking boards and schools to do that before January 20th, right? Have
wow.
a conversation now with your board while we're
Yeah.
not totally in it.
Right.
About what would this mean if we like tabletop, grab the case studies book? What would happen if we had a parent do this thing? What would
Hmm.
happen if one of our teachers was brought up in a lawsuit? Like, what would we do? Tabletop this all now because, like I said, we're in certain uncertainty.
Right.
It's in there,
Yeah.
right? I'm not making any of that up. I just don't know what's actually going to be codified. And I'm not going to sit around and wait to find out. I'm going to be strategic.
Be strategic and be
Mhm.
proactive in that respect. And so, and talking about, erasing identity or pulling those pieces out and the work that you do, I mean, literally, your books are called Identity Conscious.
You
What
know?
does that mean for you, and how are you navigating this new
Yeah.
landscape?
Thanks for that question
You're
because I think people
welcome.
forget that religious is an identity, that white is an identity, that conservative is an identity. Like people talk about identity as like the woke agenda that it only applies to me and you. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, if I were to meet somebody, which I'm going to conferences, and I usually say, like, oh, what school are you from? Like, where'd you fly in from? What did you do in town so far? Like they are answering with identity and experience. If
Right.
we are never going to ask about identity, I should never talk to you. I should never say hi. I should never start a conversation. Like cuz everything is about identity that you start talking about, right? And so to me the push is to say like everyone has it. Like it would be ridiculous to not talk about identity. And certainly when we talk about, my son right now is in AP history and he was talking about, I'm going to use air quotes for the podcast listeners, like manifest destiny, right?
Mm,
Like that's identity talk. And so what you're saying is you want to erase any identity that's not white, Christian, and male. So let's just be honest about that,
right.
right? So let's talk about this as a white Christian nationalist agenda.
Right.
Um, but that's identity also.
Right.
So you can erase every DEI initiative you want, like identity still is there. So I don't know. I think to me the work is still very relevant because I could write a whole book on the identity of the next administration. Like identity is like everything. So I mean, check me in a year, but I think I'm doing okay. I think I'll be fine. Yeah.
I will check you in a year for sure, I promise. But so we talked about what you should do in the next few months, but what should we be paying attention to afterwards?
Yes. So, gosh, someone had sent me a news article that said something like from the New York Times.
Mm,
It was said on the day after the election, the boys were playing Minecraft and the girls were crying, right? It was
mm,
like a headline out of the New York Times. And unless we have those conversations, that stuff's not going to change. I mean, there was definitely a gender impact imbalance of what we heard with the last election.
sure.
So I think in the months after, we have to continue to protect those who are most vulnerable. Now, I can't do that in legislation, but
Right.
I can make sure that my trans family and friends and relatives and community members know that I'm here, right? That I'm going to keep showing up. If anything, Bridget, I'm doubling down on my
Mm,
efforts to engage with community. And so I know I'm going to be super busy making sure that I'm in community, right? Just out there understanding what's happening in our local government, voting, right?
right.
Canvassing. I was not doing canvassing type things before, but
Sure.
I just feel like I'm super compelled to be more active.
Mm.
And I would say for people who are like, I don't know what to do, you just start, right? Show up somewhere and learn about what people are talking about and what's happening. But I do think we are in for a fight for democracy. I think we're in a fight for people's dignity. And I think we're in the fight for people's lives. And again, if I'm to align my values of curiosity, collaboration, critical thinking, compassion, and community, like that's what I'm going to continue to center over the next 4 years, right? I'm going to seek to collaborate with other minoritized communities. I'm going to be really critical in my thinking about what I see in the news and the stories people tell me. I'm going to continue to lead with compassion because I don't know any other way to be than compassionate in this world, right? And when I think about being curious, being led with the I want to learn more,
Sure.
I think is a really helpful position to be in. So to answer your question, I'm going to continue to lean into curiosity, collaboration, critical thinking, compassion, and community in these next weeks before January 20th and in the remaining years afterwards.
And beyond. That is
Yeah.
fair enough. I appreciate that. And so, as we think about wrapping up today, I always like to give our listeners some takeaways. So, what are 3 takeaways you would give to our listeners today?
Yeah, thanks for that question. These are so relevant for me, especially given some of the disappointment that I've been feeling, some of the discouragement, the worry, the certain uncertainty that I've been feeling. So one, if it is of your inclination, find community, right? I mean, I
Yes.
think about this work as being very isolating. I think about this work as being very lonely. And now when there are restrictions on who we can be with and love and be in partnership with, that's going to multiply. So one, find community. And I know sometimes people feel worried, like, I don't want to be the only one who doesn't know anybody. Well, at some point, someone else was too. So
Right.
go ahead, right? We have a conference coming up, and I just keep telling people, like, just say hi. Just say
say
hi to
hi.
people, right? Like people know what it's like to be alone. So
Exactly.
one, find community. 2, be strategic. Figure out what you want to do. I always tell people in the book, I talk about kind of this rule of 3, that 1, we have to build knowledge. So I have read so much in the past couple of weeks, 1 as a distraction, 2, just because I'm like, I need to fill my brain with something more than worry and anxiety right now. So I'm
Absolutely.
reading. 2, we have to engage in reflection. We have to ask ourselves, like, what does this mean for me? What am I being called to do? Whether that's a religious call or a spiritual call or a community, whatever that is, like there's something in here that's telling you where you need to go. Like quietly listen to that and then move to action. So build knowledge, engage in reflection, move to action, do something, right? Whether it's joining a protest or joining a book circle in your town or joining like a DEI or Dean's Roundtable, I don't know, but find community because there's people who are aligned with supporting you and believing in you. And especially on these moments, it feels very scary and lonely. But I promise you, there are people out there who care for you and care what you do and want you to sustain in this work.
I think that is a wonderful way for us to end. There are people that care about you out here, right? And so we need to care about ourselves and care about each other. And so, Liza, as always, it's been such a pleasure having you on the podcast today. Thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. And you can find Liza's 2 books. Tell us where.
Yeah, I mean, certainly wherever books are sold. I'm a big fan of supporting local bookstores, independent libraries. Like without them, we'd be nothing, y'all. So certainly you can get them fast through other providers. But if you have the opportunity to support your local bookstores, your local businesses, please order the book through there.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And again, such a pleasure to have you on today.
Thank you, Bridget. Thanks, Dean's Roundtable.
We'll see you next time. Have a great one.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Dean's Roundtable podcast series. If you are a student life professional looking for regular support, look no further than the Dean's Roundtable online community platform, where K-12 leaders share resources, grow their network, and get 24/7 professional support. Also, be sure to check out our monthly Dean's Roundtable office hours, where we tackle real challenges together in real time. Links to join both are in the episode description. Find all the details at deansroundtable.org. And don't forget to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Today's episode was hosted by Bridget Johnson in conversation with Dr. Liza Toulousa. Produced and edited by Andrick Sigmund and music by PremiumBeat.com. For any questions, contact information can be found in the episode description. And, as always, thanks again for listening.